Joyce Flynn spent 6 seasons on Mike and Molly making you laugh. The razor-sharp one-liners, the casual morning drinking, the absolute relentless war she waged against Peggy Biggs, like it was the one thing keeping her alive. We all loved her for it, every bit of it, and that house was already packed with people worth loving. Swoosie Kurtz played her so brilliantly inside that CBS sitcom that the character became genuinely iconic, and the performance hid something that the show itself never bothered to look at directly. Here's the thing most people walked away missing. Joyce Flynn is not a comedy character with a few sad edges filed onto her. She is a grieving widow who never got the space to actually grieve, and the show dressed her pain up in punchlines for 6 straight years, while we sat there and laughed and handed her right back the armor she was hiding behind. Every episode, multiple times through, and there came a specific point where Joyce stopped reading as funny and started reading as heartbreaking. Once you see what's actually sitting underneath all that noise and sharpness and whine, you can't look away from it. She's not the sassy wine mom the show kept selling you. She is a widow who got stranded inside the worst moment of her life and spent 6 seasons building walls tall enough that nobody could see over them. By the end of this, Joyce Flynn is never going to look the same to you again, and that's a promise. The concept that keeps coming back when you sit with Joyce long enough is enmeshment. It's a real term out of family therapy, and what it describes is a family system where the boundaries between people collapse so completely that nobody can leave. Nobody grows up and out, and everybody stays tangled together because the whole structure depends on nothing ever changing. Running alongside it is codependency, the pattern where one person's sense of stability becomes entirely built on controlling the emotional environment around them. The two concepts are close cousins, and Joyce Flynn is a textbook case of both. Joyce Flynn's household is one of the most textbook versions of that I've ever seen inside a sitcom. 2 adult daughters under her roof in Chicago, bills paid, house running, and the entire arrangement quietly designed so that nobody drifts far enough away to actually be gone. Whether she planned it that way or just let it happen, the result is the same. Her husband passed away when Molly and Victoria were still young, and Joyce handled the funeral, held the grief down, raised 2 kids by herself, and kept every single piece of it moving without stopping once. Somewhere in the middle of all that holding together, she just froze. She stopped moving forward and started building inward instead, filling the house with people and friction and noise and whine, because that combination was how she survived, and she never found a reason to stop. What family therapists would call parentification also crept into that dynamic, the subtle way her grief became a weight that shaped her daughter's emotional development around her needs, rather than the other way around. Molly and Victoria, played by Melissa McCarthy and Katie Mixon, grew up inside a house that was quietly organized around the wound Joyce never named. So let's walk through what that actually looked like across 6 seasons. Remember that season 4 moment where Joyce casually mentions there's a history of mental illness in the family? Molly asks her to explain, and Joyce describes it as barking, eating your own hair, holding an imaginary baby, delivered with that perfect flat timing that made the whole room crack up. Because of course, it did. Except she isn't making any of it up. Those are real things she watched happen inside her own family, maybe to herself, maybe to her daughters, and the only way she knows how to put them into a room is to wrap them in a punchline and throw them out fast enough that nobody can catch the actual weight of what she just said. Deflect first, disclose nothing, keep moving. The family lets her do it every single time. Nobody stops, nobody follows up, nobody says, "Wait, what did you just tell us?" The laugh track rolls, the scene cuts, and whatever Joyce just revealed about her actual life gets buried under the joke she handed everyone before they could respond to the truth underneath it. Watch those moments closely and you'll see the pattern. She offers you something real, then pulls it back before you can hold it every single time without fail. Here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable because the financial reality of that household is not a background detail. 2 adult daughters, a son-in-law, all living under Joyce's roof, all depending on her to keep the lights on, and Joyce knows exactly what kind of leverage that creates because she uses it openly. Remember season 4, where she looks around the room and tells everyone she's hearing a lot of complaining from people who live in her house for free? That line lands as a punchline, delivered with perfect comic timing, But what she's actually saying underneath it is that she owns the ground everyone is standing on. Later in that same season, Molly tells her she could survive on her own, and Joyce doesn't raise her voice or get angry. She just says, "You wouldn't," and then offers to loan Molly the money to test that theory. Calm, precise, almost gentle, which makes it worse. That's not a joke dressed up as a threat. That's a trap dressed up as a joke, and the difference matters enormously. She needs them there, needs the noise and the friction and the constant low-level chaos of a full house, because the alternative is silence. And silence is where everything she lost still lives. So she keeps everyone close, makes sure they know leaving isn't really an option, and calls the whole arrangement love. And maybe it genuinely is, but it functions like a cage she built around herself and pulled the people she loves into alongside her. Here's what makes the whole picture worse. Running alongside all of that control and noise and enmeshment, Joyce is drinking consistently every single day. And for 5 full seasons, the show treats it as texture rather than information. The morning wine is a running gag. The casual daytime glass is just Joyce being Joyce. What the show is actually depicting, without ever naming it, is functional alcoholism, high-functioning alcohol dependency that operates invisibly inside a family because everyone around it has reorganized their normal to accommodate it. Swoosie Kurtz makes it funny because she makes everything funny, and so we laugh, and the show moves on, and nobody names what's actually there. Then season 5 arrives, and checkpoint Joyce happens. Mike, Billy Gardell, is working a sobriety checkpoint. Joyce comes through, refuses the breathalyzer, and her own son-in-law has to put her in handcuffs. Her license gets suspended for 12 months. And Molly's response to all of this, her own daughter watching her mother get arrested, is, "Come on, Mom, it was after 6. After 6. As in, the only question worth asking is whether it happened early enough in the day to be a real concern. Nobody in that scene registers alarm, nobody is frightened, and the episode resolves without an intervention, without a recovery arc, without a single follow-up conversation. The show accidentally tells you exactly how normalized the situation has become inside that family, and then immediately backs away from what it just revealed. Honestly, that moment broke something for me, because the closest the show ever gets to acknowledging Joyce's relationship with the bottle is an arrest that everyone treats like a scheduling inconvenience. Zero accountability, zero follow-through. Now here's the part that genuinely made my stomach drop. Season 6. Joyce gets spooked by a yoga instructor who drops dead mid-session, and she starts thinking seriously about her will and what she leaves behind. Molly is thrilled to learn she's getting a grandmother's ring, and then Joyce reveals she's leaving the house to Victoria, Katie Mixon's character, and Molly falls apart over it. What that moment actually is, underneath the family argument playing out on screen, is Joyce looking at the 2 people she raised and deciding one of them needs more protection than the other. She chose Victoria, which tells you everything about what Joyce believes she built. One daughter she trusts to survive without the house beneath her feet, and one she doesn't, and she's spent 6 seasons treating them according to that assessment without ever saying it out loud. She frames it as protection, and on one level it probably is, but it's also the same mechanism she uses everywhere else. Keep them close, make sure the structure holds, don't let anyone get far enough away to be lost. The enmeshment isn't cruelty wearing a kind face. It's fear wearing a kind face, and the cost of it falls on her daughters, who carry the weight of a grief that was never theirs to carry in the first place. Here's the part that finished me off completely, and I mean that. Season 6, Joyce actually says it. She tells someone directly that she was completely blindsided when her husband passed away, that she had to plan a funeral while bawling her eyes out, that she did all of it alone. She says it out loud with no joke wrapped around it, and for a second or two, you can see exactly who she is underneath everything she's built on top of herself. What you're looking at in that moment has a clinical name, complicated grief, the kind that doesn't move through its stages because it never got the conditions it needed to actually process. It just sits there, underneath everything, forever. Then the scene buries it. A joke surfaces about some photographs her husband left behind, the laugh track comes back, the room pivots, and Joyce puts the armor on again, and that's the end of it. One moment across 6 seasons where she tells you who she actually is, and it gets 10 seconds of air before it disappears. She was a young widow who handled everything, cried through all of it, raised 2 kids, kept the house standing, kept everyone together, and never once sat down. Because sitting down would have meant letting someone look at her, and if someone had really looked, the whole structure might have collapsed. The drinking, the sharp words, the financial grip, the overcrowded house, all of it was scaffolding she built to stay upright, and it worked, in the cruelest possible sense of that word. Which brings you to the series finale. The very last time Joyce Flynn appears on screen. Her daughter is about to become a mother, the family is at the hospital, and Joyce starts a physical altercation with Peggy Biggs, played by Rondi Reed, in the maternity ward. Mike has to pull her away from it. That's the last frame. 6 years, not one moment of stillness, not one moment where someone held her instead of the other way around. She ends exactly where she started, wrapped in noise and conflict, because stillness is still where the grief is, and she never found a way to put it down. Here's the point, stated plainly. Was Joyce Flynn a bad mother? A toxic presence whose family would have been healthier at a distance from her? The answer is no, and it's not even a close call. Joyce Flynn was a woman who received the worst news of her life when her children were small, absorbed it without help, kept moving forward, and built a survival mechanism so effective that nobody, including the show, ever asked her to dismantle it. Her relationship with the bottle was grief in a different container. Her control was terror with a practical face on it. Her cruelty was what decades of fear sounds like when it doesn't have another language available. The show needed her to be the funny one, and Swoosie Kurtz made her the funny one, brilliantly and completely, and we watched 6 seasons of that CBS sitcom and called her iconic and never stopped to ask what was making all that noise in the first place. She kept that house full so she'd never have to hear it go quiet. She kept those people close so she'd never have to feel the exact shape of what she'd lost. She made herself indispensable, irreplaceable, impossible to leave, because being left was the one thing she already knew in her bones that she couldn't survive a second time. Every time Joyce Flynn picked up a glass and said something that made the room laugh, she was doing the only thing she knew how to do with a wound that never got the chance to close properly. The sad truth about Joyce Flynn isn't that she was difficult to love. It's that she was heartbroken the entire time, and she was so extraordinarily good at hiding it that even the show forgot to look. Is Peggy Biggs the real villain of Mike and Molly, or just a woman every bit as lonely and stuck as Joyce, wearing a completely different mask? Drop your read below. I genuinely read every single one. And if this kind of deep dive into the characters the sitcom era left behind is your thing, subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from.